Well, hey there, Thomas Kissinger, and I wanted to read us some from the book A Larger Hope, Universal Salvation from Christian Beginnings to Julian of Norwich by professor and scholar ILARIA RAMELLI. And she devotes this book to the topic Apokatastasis. And some of you may be saying or asking, Apaka, what? Well, it's a Greek word. And it means the final restoration of all human beings or all rational creatures to God. So let's get into some of this and read through it. We'll be starting with the section that says by way of introduction. And it starts out with a quote from the early church father Origen of Alexandria in his commentary on Romans 5. I do not think that the reign of death is eternal as that of life and justice is, especially as I hear from the apostle that the last enemy, death, must be destroyed. 1 Corinthians 15:24. For should one suppose that death is eternal as life is, death will no longer be the contradictory of life, but equal to it. For eternal is not the contradictory of eternal, but the same thing. Now it is certain that death is the contradictory of life. Therefore it is certain that if life is eternal, death cannot possibly be eternal. Once the death of the soul, which is the last enemy, has been destroyed, the kingdom of death, together with death itself, will finally be wiped away. Universal salvation and Greek restoration, Apokatastasis. Origen of Alexandria, about 255, the greatest Christian philosopher, theologian, and exegete of the patristic era, is regarded as the founder of the doctrine of universal salvation. He embedded it in his theory of apokatastasis, or restoration of all rational creatures to the good, God their creator. However, as I will show, he had important antecedents such as Bardasian of Edessa and Clement of Alexandria, as well as some apocryphal writings, and especially the Bible, of which Origen was the utmost Christian exegete. He himself declares that there was a tradition behind him when he refers apokatastasis to the universal restoration. The end, telos, is the so-called apokatastasis, because then no enemy will remain. If it is the case that Christ must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet, but the last enemy will be destroyed, death. The words, the so-called apokatastasis, indicate that Origen is referring to an already existent tradition. And this was not a tradition that only possessed the concept of universal salvation, but not the word apokatastasis, such as the Apocalypse of Peter, but rather texts that contained both the concept and the very term apokatastasis, such as those of Clement, which Origen knew, but also a biblical passage, Acts 3:21. The Greek term apokatastasis basically indicates a restoration, reconstitution, return to an original condition. It is attested in classical and Hellenistic Greek literature long before Christianity, and also has technical meanings. For instance, in a medical sense, it designates the recovery of health. In a political sense, the return of a hostage to his homeland, or a political restoration. In a military sense, an inversion of maneuver. In a physical sense, the reestablishment of atoms after a collision. In astronomy, the apokatastasis of a heavenly body was its return to its original position, or a zodiacal revolution, or the return of the sun and the moon to visibility after an eclipse. Apokatastasis was also a philosophical term, especially in Stoic cosmology. There, it indicated the periodical return of the universe to its original condition in a cosmic cycle. Stoic cosmology was articulated in aeons or great years that succeeded one another. Each of these aeons is identical or almost identical to all others, with the same events, the same people, and their same behaviors. The sequence of aeons continues forever. The end of an aeon is determined by a conflagration in which everything is resolved into the fire, aether, logos, reason, pneuma, breath, wind, that coincides with the supreme divinity Zeus, Jupiter. The latter each time initiates a new expansion into a cosmos. Origen knew the Stoic doctrine of aeons and Apokatastasis very well. But the Stoic aeons are different from those of Origen. Indeed, Origen explicitly criticized the Stoic conception for two main reasons. It destroyed human free will by maintaining that everything that happens is repeated again and again and again by necessity. By positing, this is number two, by positing an infinity of the sequence of aeons, it did not imply an end or telos to which all of history points, and which for Origen is universal salvation, but a senseless, eternal repetition. Origen himself explains the basic meaning of apokatastasis, someone's return or restoration to a condition that is proper and original to him or her. He illustrates this general meaning by means of some specific examples. The medical therapeutic meaning of the resetting of a limb into its place after a displacement. The political meaning of the reintegration of an exile, or the military meaning of the readmission of a soldier into a unit from which he had been chased away. All of these meanings can metaphorically be applied to the final restoration of all human beings or all rational creatures to God. And that's what the Greek word means, and it is found in Acts 3:21, where Peter said that the heavens must receive Jesus until the times of the restitution or the restoration of all things, which was spoken of by the mouth of all God's holy prophets since the world began. So that actually tells us that all of the holy prophets since the world began have spoken of this restoration and ultimate restoration of all things. In the Greek, it is apokatastasis. And that is really what the early church fathers taught, believed, understood. And they got it from the scriptures. They got it from Jesus Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection. So that's an introduction to it. And of course, we'll do another part to this and pick up next time where we left off.